Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK.
And I'm Courtney.
And this is like the 400th hour of recording we have done in the last 12 days.
It is the DNA Awards!
Even these bubbles.
I'm really into these bubbles this weekend.
You are.
Thank you.
Yeah. Happy DNA Awards today. About Dead Like Me. It's a time.
It's a mood.
Yeah. We were going to record these last night, but if you watched Sunday's episode of the podcast, you will know that by the time we finished recording Sunday's episode, I literally didn't care about anything anymore.
It was a rough time.
I'm going to go back and edit that and be like, wow, you were on some shit.
And I am extra perky. That's how the editing is going to go. Do not worry. I tried to overcompensate.
She was like, I could feel you wanting to die. And so I just put so much energy in it. And I was like,
I do not know what I said. It was strictly like straight energy coming out. So that's fun.
Yeah.
And we're getting ready to do our first ever live to announce the new season, which we still don't know what it is yet because we're doing a random will on the website.
Yeah.
Will website.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a day. It is February 27th. It will not be February anymore when you see this.
It will not. It will
like
be
a
real
long
March.
shot. Yeah.
Like real March.
Real March. But we aren't gonna pussyfoot around.
Because we gotta get, like I said, we gotta get ready for that live that we're doing in an hour.
So DNA Awards.
Things we didn't do before, completely pull up our notes.
Yes, but mine are on my phone, so it's a little easier.
It's a new notebook, so I don't have too many notes in here.
Well, we will start. Should we start with the worst ofs to just get them out of the way? Because there are things that are
like
bad
across the board.
Yeah,
worst ofs? Sure.
Because I like to do the bad things first, so that then there's still joy left in my life.
I do like when I have joy left in my life. That is an excellent thing to have.
Which, interestingly, I don't think joy is involved in any of these things that I picked.
That's really sad.
Yeah,
I love her.
I do too, but like I really don't. I realized I don't think that she played effect in anything.
I don't know that she did mine either, but it's really sad because I love her.
So let's start with the big one, the least favorite episode.
Okay. Well, I'll start. We didn't plan this. This is like we said, this is our 4th episode this weekend. My least favorite episode was Vacation. From season 1. It wasn't, none of the episodes were absolutely dreadful by any means, but it was just such a placeholder episode.
See, I thought that the Joy and Reggie stuff in that episode made it worth not being the worst episode.
I could see that.
Yeah.
But compared to the rest of the episodes, it had the least moving along qualities for me.
I have a cop-out answer because I picked an episode and then I just wrote, or if the movie, if we're counting that, because the movie was fucking garbage.
We're pretending like the movie didn't exist.
Well, we can't because some of the things I have are in the movie. But my least favorite episode was Dead Girl Walking, which is the second episode of the show.
Early on.
It's season 1, episode 2, and it's just not bad again, but the characters aren't the same people that they were by the end of the show.
No, absolutely not. Very different. Yeah. We don't have a third, so like we're just gonna agree to disagree.
Yeah,
a lot, because normally we have someone who helps us decide.
Yeah, we normally have like somebody who picks which, or we decide which one. But I think that like both of those answers are fair. Like,
and they're so subjective. Like this one in particular is.
Yeah, I don't,
because nothing was bad.
No,
it was just the one we liked the least.
How about, I'm just going down my list. How about the worst director?
This was a shocking one for me.
Wow, okay.
Because I feel like I complimented him a lot throughout the series. And I think I just forgot what he directed. while I was complimenting him so much.
Ah.
David Grossman.
He did 4 episodes, but none of them were stellar episodes.
They were all the ones that like didn't feel like we were pushing things along, or they felt really like they felt a little out of place, a little disconjointed.
Yeah.
And so like, again, not terrible because I watched the episode and apparently liked him while we were going through. But when I went back to look at it, his episodes were the ones I liked the least.
I picked Scott Wynette, who did
The
the first episode, the pilot, because it just didn't feel like the same show.
I do agree with that. I did look at him, but I was like, it's the pilot.
No, and I totally know, but I think there were some things that were written poorly, but I don't really think there was a super ton of bad directing.
Yeah.
Because you can only do so much with dialogue that doesn't fucking make sense.
Right.
But I don't think that the pilot got the characters. And some of the visuals of the pilot, some of the ways that they showed things that they then changed later on, I liked the changes better.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
How about worst writer?
Worst writer was, you go first.
I picked Peter Oko. And I don't now remember on this notes because I didn't write down what episodes he wrote for.
He did some of the earlier ones.
But
he did them with Stephen Gottschall, I think.
He did. No, he only wrote things in season 1.
Right.
So I might have done with Stephen Gottschall, but he wrote things in season 1. And I think, oh, you know what? I do know. Every episode that had a huge amount of characters going back on what they had just previously gotten, he was involved in season 1. In season 2, he wasn't in it as much, so there wasn't. But like, I think whatever it was, the episode where Mason had the first big breakthrough, and then the next episode, it was like none of that had happened. He wrote that episode.
Gotcha.
And I felt personally victimized by that.
You're right. You're going to be the one who wins this one, but Brian Fuller, because I'm so annoyed with him, like not being consistent, not having his world figured out before.
But I don't blame him because
I don't blame him for leaving.
Because if he had stayed on the whole show and it had still been this consistent, I 100% would have put him. But he only wrote the first 5 episodes, and then he was credited as having created it. He was credited as a consultant, but from what I've read, he actually didn't have any involvement anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't really blame him because
I blame him. It's his show. He created it. And he let it go off the rails.
Yes, but he didn't give us Daisy.
That's true.
Which at one point
was a bad thing.
At one point was the biggest blessing of our lives, is that he was not the one that created Daisy. I still laugh when I think about how much we hated her.
Oh my gosh, we did. But she was a miserable character at the beginning.
And in the movie. Worst FX.
Yeah. I've talked about this in the episodes we've discussed already. My least favorite special effects was that dry ice scene with Mason from the very last episode, because we are in the last episode of this show. We have had effects throughout that have been fine, and we turned it into a cartoon the last like 20 minutes of the show, and I was like, what happened?
I agree. I forgot about how bad that was. I wrote about something, I can't remember if it happened in the beginning of season 2 or the end of season 1, but it was the first time that I was like, oh, that is dreadful. And it was the flower shop explosion.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember hating that.
I was so offended by that entire scene. It was absolutely dreadful.
It wasn't great, but
it was not as bad as that dry ice thing. That was you can have that one, because that was just
made no sense. It didn't even
didn't even matter for the plot. At least the flower shop explosion mattered for the plot.
Right. At least it like helped push the story along. But oh, Jesus Christ, I will never forgive them for that.
Worst death.
So I did this from an emotional perspective,
which is totally fair.
Not from a writing.
I remember in
Show.
Hemlock Grove, we had Best and Worst Death in terms of visual and then in terms of story. And I didn't want to have too many awards for this because I don't think any of the deaths were good visually.
Yeah.
So I just skipped that. But that's fair because mine is from a logistics perspective.
Excellent.
So what
we will match up.
Yeah.
Mine was the domestic abuse murder in the hotel where Daisy was watching.
That was rough.
That was, I think, the saddest for me.
I think saddest for me were the old gay couple.
Oh,
But the one that I chose,
but that was still like beautiful.
it was
like there was redemption.
Yeah,
This
true.
one did not have redemption.
That's true. The one that I picked is because it is something that I hate so very much, and I've talked about it many times, not just on the podcast. The water cooler man. I fucking cannot get over that.
Yes, you are accurate. Logistically, he is the worst.
My sister commented on one of our YouTube videos about how the spray paint can being knocking a guy in the head and all of a sudden he's bleeding to death is so illogical. And I was like, yes, but we knew logic wasn't an issue.
Right,
a man choked and died on a water cooler.
Right. Like, did you watch the rest of the show? She did. She's very supportive.
But she said that the deaths in general is why the show doesn't make sense to her. And I was like, that's fair because
that isn't
they don't.
Accurate choice.
Worst kiss.
I also took this from an emotional perspective.
Okay.
I picked Ray and Daisy towards the end.
That is totally fair. I picked the one that made me the most uncomfortable in all of the ways. And I had to go to the movie for that one.
See, I avoided the movie.
Because George and Cameron, I'm just not okay. I'm not okay.
That was absolutely the worst. I was just pretending like the movie didn't exist.
Which is totally fair, but I will never be able to not see that.
No, it was
happened.
Really bad. It was really bad.
And then I guess we have two more negatives. Worst fashion choices.
I do not remember this episode. I remember the scene. I do not remember this episode.
Okay.
It was that scene where George walked in that skirt outfit. We talked about this in the podcast. And I was like, that is the least George outfit I've ever seen in my life. And I was so taken, like, I don't even remember what the scene was about. I remember her, I think it may have been when she went to the hospital.
Oh yes, the hospital. And I was upset with her legs.
Yes.
Yeah,
because I was like, I was so taken out of the scene itself because I couldn't stop looking at her. I was like, you don't look right. Like, not that she looked like a bad person or anything, but like it just didn't fit.
I just had a comment about the early 2000s in general. And unfortunately, I was this person in the early 2000s. But anytime George wore a skirt over jeans,
I loved it. I loved it.
Particularly in the season 2 finale, the Halloween, the red, like almost like lingerie looking skirt over jeans as a Halloween costume. I just felt all kinds of like assaulted by my childhood.
Took me back. I was there. I was in it. I love 2000s fashion. It is atrocious.
It is so bad.
But it is so fun.
So
fun.
So atrocious. But like, can you imagine that that's how we dressed?
I loved it. I would still dress like that, I think.
I look at pictures when they're like worst red carpet looks from the early 2000s.
Okay, but those are red carpet looks.
No. But it's like from the Teen Choice Awards, and it's Hilary Duff in like a really uncomfortably tight crop top with a skinny scarf and like low-rise jeans and then a vest and a skirt. And I'm like,
that's not a awards show.
I wore that to school on a Wednesday.
Right. I would have worn that to school on a Wednesday. I would not have worn that to a red carpet.
Well, I agree that it's not the correct place for that. But also, who told me that looked cute?
Because it did.
But my problem with 2000s fashion is not even the weirdness of it, because it's weird, but because we were wearing clothes that legitimately don't make sense to the shape of the human body.
Oh, I couldn't wear low-rise jeans.
Low-rise jeans,
even wear them.
literally, I did. I did all the time. My butt crack was everybody's best friend.
That's why I didn't wear them.
What made us think I'm going to take the largest part of your body right at your butt and then put a solid line through it so that everyone is staring at the widest part of you? Who thought that that was a good idea?
People that don't understand how
Whoever designed the first pair of low-rise jeans, particularly if they had 70s bell-bottom flare legs, please contact me. I have questions.
I don't. You're wrong, though. I would like to tell you that if you are listening by any chance. I don't have any questions. I just want you to know you've messed up.
And the last negative one is biggest plot hole.
Oh, you skipped worst actor.
Oh, I did skip worst actor. Oh my gosh, you're absolutely right.
I want you to go first.
This is another one where I could not ignore that the movie existed.
Okay.
Because I picked The Fake Daisy.
Okay, that's fair. I really stay away from the movie.
I know.
And I picked Ellen Muth.
She's not a great actor.
Out of the whole show, I understand she's the main character. She's not a great actress.
Yeah.
But she's not the worst actress I've ever seen on the planet. But out of the show, she's the one who is the worst actress.
I think,
like, I
agree. I agree. She's not a great actress. But I also kind of like, you get so used to that's who George is, because I honestly think it's a matter of she wasn't really acting. She was just George.
Right.
But like, you kind of get used to the fact that George is because I am from the theater world, the idea that multiple actresses can play the same character is not foreign to me. I have seen like so many different people play certain roles and never doubt for a second that they are that character. I did not believe, not just because I was mad that Laura Harris was gone, but that girl was not Daisy.
No, she absolutely was not.
And it wasn't like I'm mad that they replaced her, because like sometimes shit happens. Michael Gambon and Richard Harris were not the same Dumbledore, but they were equally Dumbledore.
Right.
And I believed it the second the third movie started, even though I didn't want it to not be Richard Harris.
Right.
It is totally possible. I've seen so many different productions of like classic musicals, and it's like, I once saw a version of The Music Man where the guy who played Harold Hill was my friend, who was just like the weirdest, most flamboyant gay man ever. And I still believe that more than I believed this girl being Daisy.
No, I agree. She definitely is the worst actress in the franchise of Dead Like Me. But
if we ignore that the movie existed, yeah, I would say Ellen Muth probably, or
I think everyone else was so close to their character. Like,
yeah, but that's just like, or like guests. The only way that it could be somebody else would be as if it was like somebody who was only in one or two episodes.
Because even like, as much as I have problems with Clancy's storyline,
I believed him.
Greg Keane isn't a bad actor.
Yeah, no,
he just had a bad character.
Correct.
And so like, I never. Because like I was like, who are the characters that bothered me the most? And I was like, okay, obviously Clancy was one that I didn't care for.
But Clancy bothered you because he's supposed to.
Well, yeah, but then I felt like he was just dragging on, which I understand. We've discussed this 1,000 times. But the only one that bothered me as a actor playing that character was Ellen Muth.
That's totally fair.
So now we can go.
Yes. No. Oh, and now, yes, the biggest plot hole.
I mean,
what the fuck do the Reapers look like?
Oh, I picked Rube's story.
Oh, no, I don't even care, because I think that I figured it out. I don't like how it was done, but I know the answer. I don't know what the answer to what the fuck the Reapers look like.
Yeah. I've just given up on not having an answer, I think. But like Rube's story, while we know an answer to it, it's never told in the movie, like his life story. There were so many things left off of his life.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's why I picked that. But yours is also correct.
It's just, but the thing is, character backstories in a world where the show didn't get canceled could have been further explained. That's the thing with times when shows end without them planning on ending. I'm not always as mad about detail things
I think
like
that's
that,
fair.
but like things that legitimately you could have 6 more seasons and it still would not make sense because they fucked it up so many
No, I agree.
times.
Yours is probably the biggest one.
Because yeah, I just am so mad about it. Because then they went back in the movie to the original idea.
Right.
And like
I never mentioned it.
But like stuck hard to the original idea. And I was like, what the fuck?
I know. It was not well fleshed out by any means.
No. So those are all the negatives.
But don't worry. We're here for the positives.
But also, I would like to say that we just flew through those in like 15 minutes.
Well, it's the awards. We're not trying to like. We've discussed everything.
We actually have the Academy Awards orchestra sitting over in the other side of the room to play us off if we spend too long talking about this bullshit.
They're ready to drag us out because they were like, we have heard too much about the show in the past 72 hours. Yeah. And we've discussed everything. So there's not a lot of discussion left, except for opinion-based discussion that we already know probably.
True. So now we've got our positives. There really were a lot of positives. I know I'm on such a downer about this show, but like there really were a lot of good things. It was a good show.
It was enjoyable. I would have watched it outside of the podcast. It's been on my list for ages to watch, and I would have liked it still.
I will say I would have enjoyed it more without the podcast.
I would have too.
Because I wouldn't be thinking about all the things that pissed me off.
I would too.
Listen, don't get me wrong. I love doing the podcast. I talk about these kinds of things anyway. But sometimes I'm watching shows and I'm like, maybe I wouldn't hate this so much if I didn't spend 45 minutes discussing this one scene.
No, it's true. Because you're also like, I'm the type of person who like really separates myself from the art and I just appreciate it for what it is. So I can watch a show that I know is bad and still have a great time.
I mean,
but when we're watching stuff like this, like you have to think about it.
Right. Like, listen, I did not spend 3 weeks binging Celebrity Big Brother for hours and hours and hours at a time to think that that was a good show.
That's how I feel about Emily in Paris. It's such a fun show. And I love Lily Collins. And it's a train wreck. The whole show is like kind of a disaster, but it's really fun. And I'm not trying to critique it, so I can enjoy it.
Yeah. Sorry, I was doing the math about when.
I didn't know what you were doing.
I was doing the math about when this episode is actually coming out. This Friday for you, not for me. Speaking of shows that you should just watch and enjoy, The Last Kingdom season 5 is finally coming to Netflix Friday, March 9th.
You guys been talking about this for years.
Literally for over a year. And they finally put the season 5 out there, and I want anyone who feels my pain to be excited that it's finally happening.
So kudos to all of you who are getting the last season.
And they're filming the movie. So that is my positive of the day.
Oh, that's so nice.
My best friend teaches health to 7th and 8th graders, and she starts every class with a check-in of, they have to say a high and a low of the day. And then she tells them to me. Now, the kids like, it's not like they think it's a secret. The kids, all of the middle school kids are very aware that anything that they say to her or me will be said to both of us. Like they know that we are like this, and they usually tell us things and then say, did Miss Bork tell you what I said? Yeah. Like they know. These kids have the funniest highs and lows I've ever seen. Like sometimes the things that bother them are so dumb, but also the things that give them joy are just like, I wish that I had the capacity to be joyed by that small of a moment.
I feel like I'm pretty good at like highs and lows that are inconsequential. I also have highs and lows that are not at all, but there are some days that I can just be happy I got to take a nap.
Oh, I'm always happy if I get to take a nap.
Like, there are good things
in
the world.
And the good things in Dead Like Me's world
Great
are as follows. What's your favorite episode?
This is maybe interesting.
Okay.
My favorite episode, after going back and thinking about how they affected the show, was Rites of Passage, the Rockstar episode.
Okay.
Because, first of all, love a good emo episode.
Absolutely.
Love a good goth. And but that was the turning point in the show. That's where we got the new show that we couldn't stop watching, when everything started being 8 out of 10 on IMDb, where we wanted to know more, and everything started lining up. Like, so I think it was
I like that answer. I picked Always because I just finally
you wanted to cry for 10 years.
Yes, finally getting Rube's story. Dealing with all of the aftermath of Mason having thought that he was going to die and then not, but all of his like emotions about people being out in the open. The dialogue in that episode was 10 out of 10.
It was really good. I almost picked that one because it was really good, but I just
yours is a totally fair.
I picked mine because I loved it. It was so important to the show, I feel like.
Mandy Patinkin singing is just always gonna take the cake for me.
I know.
But those are both really good episodes.
They are really
Notice
good
how
episodes.
all of the worsts are like season 1,
right?
And all of the best are gonna be season 2.
Look, we can't help it.
How about the best director?
I picked James Whitmore Jr.
That is a great choice.
He did Nighthawks and Halloween, which I think were 2 of the best directed.
Yeah. I picked a weird one because it is someone who only directed 1 episode. But now I can't remember which episode it was. So we're going to give me 0.3 seconds to pull back up IMDb because I knew if we had filmed this last night, I would have remembered why I picked this man. But then I was like, I surely do not have any idea.
I put little notes to the side because I didn't trust my brain even if we did this last night.
Yeah, I did it on my phone at the restaurant.
Yeah.
So, Brad Turner is who I picked. Brad Turner directed Forget Me Not, which was the episode where
at the hospital,
and at the end of it is where Ray dies. And I just thought that the direction of that, the way that they showed time passing in the hospital when they were trying to get her to forget, the way that the lighting worked on all the scenes where Ray was like becoming more dark. Like I really appreciated the subtleness of his directing such an intense episode.
I think, that's very fair. That was a really good directed episode. I agree.
Because it was like little things like that you probably wouldn't even notice, but like the way the lights came up on Ray when he was in the house.
That's true.
And then the music just like cuts out. Like just little things that it's like somebody thought really hard about what to do in that moment. And I appreciate it.
And I mean, that was an important episode to do that in because it was such a like intense episode. You have to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas I also think Nighthawks and Halloween were done really well. Yes. They're a little more surface level.
Yeah, but they
follow a theme.
But they're still like,
so they're really well done still, but doesn't have as much of the subtlety. Like, you know what's happening. Like you see the changes, which are good. It's important. So
right.
I think they're both great directors.
How about the best writer?
I have to find where I put it. Oh, I put Stephen Gottschall.
So did I.
I mean, what are you gonna do?
He took a show that was clearly flailing and made it something that we were
that people care about,
desperately trying to watch. I obviously have already talked about the things that I think that he didn't consult Brian Fuller on enough. I think he had flaws. I think his greatest skill as a writer was choosing people to work with him. Like he chose the best team for that season 2.
Yeah, it was like, so well done.
Harry Victor and
Jenny
Fesman and John Macias and like the people that he chose to work on the season with him were just great.
And he kept the story going when you needed it to go. Like, even though there were plot holes, there were things that were missing because he probably didn't consult enough, didn't have the contact with Brian Fuller, which is what it is. You still enjoyed the show. You still wanted to know more. And he still wrote a story that didn't feel out of place.
Yep.
Based on not having that like background that he needed. So,
All right.
and the movie doesn't exist
No, it doesn't.
because that was terrible writing.
it- the thing is, if I had not watched the show and I just watched the movie, I would not think it was terrible writing. I would think it was. I would not think it was good writing, but I would not think it was terrible.
I wouldn't think it was terrible writing. I would think it was lacking.
Yes.
And which it was. But yeah, I mean, we know what Stephen Bradshaw and John Massius can do. And then to come out with this movie, like,
Yeah,
it was insane. But still, we love Stephen Bradshaw. He's the best writer.
How about the best actor?
You go first.
Mine is not one of the main characters.
Really?
Yes. I picked Eric McCormick.
I almost did.
Because I think that, first of all, everybody knows Eric McCormick. You would not know him from that role to something else except for his face.
Right.
It was a role that genuinely made me feel things that I wasn't prepared to feel. His portrayal of that character was so accurate to people I know who are that like I just felt things that I was not comfortable feeling. I think that he was the best at being someone other than himself.
And I genuinely, after that, I don't like him as a person as
I know.
much. I know that that's not.
I'm gonna have to binge watch Will and Grace just to like forget that I hate him.
I know, because he's not a bad person.
No,
in real life, but I feel like he is.
Right, but like you feel like I don't know. It's gonna take a while before I can look at his face without getting like a shiver.
Yeah,
and I appreciate that as a skill.
I agree. I almost picked him because of that.
Yeah.
But for almost similar reason, I picked Calvin Blue. He was, while his writing was a little inconsistent, his character was the most consistent.
Absolutely. He was never
anything he did, I never said, why did he do that? Or what is going on? And he had the most highs and lows. He had the most emotional scenes and made it through every one exactly how he should have.
When I think about Callum Blue's acting in this show and the insanity that he must have as an actor felt doing that, I think particularly of the scene from season 1 where he had illegals in his bottom.
I always think of that scene.
Because the ability to do that in a way that it took everyone around him a minute to notice that he wasn't okay. It was not overacted, but he was clearly not okay.
Right.
Like it just.
And similar to how Eric McCormick wasn't himself, I've only seen Callum Blue in one other thing, and it was Royal Pains. I had no idea he was the same person in that show. Like, I was looking through his credits and I was like, I had no idea that was, I watched all of Royal Pains. I loved it. I saw Cal. He was pretty prominent.
Yeah.
No idea they were the same person. And he was great at both of those like shows.
I have to look up what year something happened.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Perfect. So in 2004, when this movie was happening, it was also at the same time as a little Disney movie called Princess Diaries 2: The Royal Engagement, where Callum Blue played Andrew Jacobi, the tight-laced, wonderfully respectable British man. I obviously watched both of these things at that time, right? Because it was the same year. 5 years later, when I figured out that it was the same person in both of those, I felt so many things.
Right. Like I haven't watched Princess Diaries probably since then.
But I watched this second one a lot because I just love Chris Pine.
I do love Chris Pine.
But we all know how I feel about Callum Blue and how I feel about Mason. At the time, I did not think Andrew Jacobi was attractive because he just
was a different person.
He just inhabits the characters.
He is just so talented. And I mean, I think equally to Aaron McCormick, I don't know that I would be able to really pick one of the other. I picked Mason because
Mason is the main character. Yeah.
But that's really my only argument for why I picked him over Aaron McCormick.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they both really, really did their roles well.
And that's not to say that anybody else was bad. Like Mandy Patinkin and
no,
Laura Harris,
absolutely.
like they're all phenomenal. But those two are the most Like there were times where Rube would say things where I knew that was Mandy Patinkin talking.
Yeah, and there were times where Laura Harris would try to do something with Daisy's character that didn't work.
But the Callum and Eric were both always, even when you hated them, so good.
Exactly.
Now, the next one is the best kiss. Actually, I want to save that one.
Okay.
The best FX. Let's do the best FX.
Okay.
Mine is probably not actually great FX, but it's the only special effects for the whole series that were consistent from episode 1 to episode 14 of season 2.
We may have the same thing.
And it's the Gravelings.
Yep. That is exactly what I
Because
picked.
the Gravelings, while not the quality of the SFX for the Gravelings doesn't really hold up today. It wasn't bad at the time.
2004.
And it's the only part of the special effects that is literally the same from episode 1 to the end.
Yes.
Like the way that the lights happen and people die changes, the way that the souls are reaped changes. Like, but the Gravelings look the same from beginning to end.
From day
all
one
the way
to the
through.
finale. Like there's not a change. I agree. That's exactly why I picked them.
I picked them for consistency more than quality.
Yeah. So not a lot of discussion there because we agreed.
How about the best death?
Again, I picked with my emotions. It was also probably like good logistically too. I picked the guy in the church with Daisy.
The priest or the trans guy?
The trans guy.
Okay.
Because there was so much emotion and the lighting in that scene and the sound effects and everything. So I picked it for my emotions and then realized that it also was a good scene.
Yeah.
It really made me feel like I was there almost, like with how intense it was. And like I couldn't get over it when I think
especially like growing up religious and seeing someone like that angry at God because they don't want to be angry at God, like that was emotionally triggering kind of thing.
And I have friends who I've seen angry at God who didn't want to be angry at God. And so it was like trying to picture everyone I know and like seeing it felt like real life. Like it felt like something I would have been there for, and not like it was just emotional.
I picked one that is also I picked based on emotion, but also based on how it looked, but less real world for me for a moment because I picked JD.
Oh,
because the way that they shot it, they didn't actually show a dead dog, and the whole like he was running out, but then he wasn't really there. Like I thought that the way that they did it and the like stages of realization for George were really well done.
I agree, and that's one of the things I liked better about the earlier deaths than the movie deaths was because they did a lot of that where they didn't show the death, they showed the person after.
Yes.
And I remember you really being into that, talking about it, how like he walked through Reggie and all that, and it was really good. Yeah. It was really well shot. I will never pick that as the best death because I told you from the beginning I'd be mad if JD died.
Which is totally fair.
And I understand that's a biased opinion, not a critique opinion. I'm very aware, and I don't care.
But I also think that if JD hadn't died, story-wise, I think JD's death was the only reason that Reggie and Joy were able to have any conversations about George. Because if she hadn't had to face death again and be angry about it, they would have continued to sweep it under the rug.
That's fair.
So
that's fair. You're not wrong.
And it was the only time in season 2 that Clancy was worth a damn.
Also true. Also true.
Oh, so now back to the best kiss. Because this one I wanted to save it because despite my deep and dying devotion to Mason, I did not pick anything that has to do with him.
Interesting. What did you pick?
I picked George and Trip when she pulled him across the table.
Me too. Because first of all, that was a great scene. That is the first, maybe only time we saw Illinois have chemistry with someone, that much chemistry on the screen. That's where we saw her act.
And it was so unexpected, but so like, it was one of those things where like, I don't think I should be rooting for them to be in love because I get it because the Reaper thing, but like also like just fucking do it.
Right. It was the best. Like I was surprised because I was like, I bet MK is gonna pick
I almost picked Daisy and Mason, but then I remembered how uncomfortable the kiss felt in the moment because they were both so upset.
Yes, and it felt like it would have been, I mean, I said this in the episode, but it should have been placed differently because I wanted to have more emotions when I saw it.
I wanted to want them to kiss more than I did in
Yeah.
that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But George and Trip, I was like, fucking get it, girl.
It caught you off guard. It was excellent. It was so well done. Yes, agreed.
My favorite unexpected plot line or plot twist.
While not thoroughly fleshed out, George dating Gravelings. That's not something I would have guessed from the beginning.
Right.
Like when I was thinking it through, I was like, there are things that happened that like caught me off guard, but they were things that, you know, like a death happened a certain way. And it was like, okay, I expect a death to catch me off guard.
Yeah.
I expect the chemistry between characters to catch me off guard with Mason and Daisy and this and that.
Yeah.
I was like, that is a storyline I would not have come up with out of my head. Like, because I had no idea until I saw it happen.
Mine was Tiffany being a psychic. Because I just really wanted more of that. Because from day one, well, actually in season 1, they had rotating waitresses and I didn't like that.
Right. But only for the first few episodes.
Then once Tiffany was there, Tiffany stayed. And I wanted so badly. Like from day one, I was like, how does she just sit here and listen to these things? I want a spinoff where she's just in the kitchen telling people all the shit that she has heard.
Oh, I would love it.
But then also if she's psychic, she's not going to do that.
Right.
Like I'm so intrigued.
I love her dearly.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. Sorry, we had a dog crossing event.
Dog crossing in it, yes.
And then which one should we do next? Quote or pop culture reference?
We'll do quote.
Okay.
Because mine's kind of a throw off quote. It's one that I really, really liked. And I remember thinking was really hilarious, but doesn't really matter.
Okay.
So I picked Raven's quote where she said, I like stale because it's closer to death. Because I still find that hilarious. And she does not matter as a character in it still.
My quote, I said this earlier, I picked a quote that in and of itself is probably not the best quote, but it was the first thing that came to my mind to describe a genre of quotes.
Yes.
And that is your dress makes me feel funny in my pants. And the genre of quotes is Mason's inability to flirt in a normal human manner. Every time Mason says something that you're like, you can't say that to people.
Right. That's not appropriate.
That's not an appropriate way to talk to literally anyone.
I agree.
That is my favorite genre of quotes.
Yes.
Is Mason's flirting.
I agree. That is like excellent choice.
And then the last one before the biggie is our favorite pop culture and or literary reference, basically an allusion, figurative language. And mine is something that is really only, it's funny, but it just like, for me personally, because it's basically exactly how I taught this book, only without these words.
Oh, yeah.
When Daisy says that if Romeo had just masturbated more often, he wouldn't have had to kill himself.
Yeah. That is an excellent one.
Because I strongly agree with that statement. In fact, my 8th graders currently hate Romeo. Like my 8th grade girls think that is like, you have these people who are like, Romeo and Juliet, best story ever. But my 8th grade girls are like, Romeo is an idiot.
Yes.
I would never date someone that dumb. And
good for them.
I taught you well.
I picked the Nighthawks episode. I mean, I just can't. I love the art. I love the reference, both Daisy's picture and the restaurant picture.
Yeah.
And I recently watched something where they used that same picture, and I don't remember what it was. I mean, the only thing I've seen lately was Nightmare Alley and Grimm, so
one of those.
Probably one of those things. But yeah, that one's always gonna hold it for me because I just really love a good art reference.
I know there was more that I really liked. Like there was a couple theater references that like Rube said that I really enjoyed, and I liked the allusions to the Titanic when what's her name died.
Yardley Smith.
Yeah, but like I couldn't. That the Romeo one was just like I literally spit out my drink when I heard that the first time.
Yeah, that's fair.
So All right, that is it. Just kidding. Of course, we have the biggie, the double helix, the granddaddy of them all. Mine is a fucking cop out.
How dare you? You go first then.
Mine is just Mason. Just Mason.
That is a cop out.
But to be fair, Kyle and Blue's acting, Mason's character growth and storylines, the dialogue that he gets for comedy, like just
it did push the show along.
If there was no Mason, the show would not be interesting.
Absolutely not. You're absolutely correct.
So it is a cop out because he makes me feel funny in my pants. But I think that without him, and this is like, I'm not saying Callum Blue is my DNA or my double helix. I'm saying Mason, like the character's existence and what he does for the show, his friendship with George, his pushing Daisy to be somebody else, his dialogue, like without Mason, I don't like the show. I agree.
I do agree with that. I picked their family dynamic.
Oh, I love that.
The group of them, they do have such, for the most part, a consistent family dynamic that is, they all hit the parts they need to hit, which is one of the reasons we talked about why Betty had to leave, aside from
her and the whole legal reasons.
Right. Was because she just didn't fit in, because we didn't have that extra personality we needed.
Right. She was, and granted, I think that they could have made it work, the big sister, like the stable big sister, because you nobody in that family is stable. You kind of want one of your kids to have something going for them.
Right.
So like the stable big sister who's looking out for George and Mason, like that's the direction they could have gone with her. But I like the A+ without trying, I'm better than you, like version of the big sister that Daisy is.
I agree. I thought I was gonna hate it. It was a much better choice.
It gives more for George to work with, butt heads with.
Yeah, because we would have had no personality for
and
George
I think
at all.
It's almost because George was that with Reggie.
Mm-hmm.
George never was a caring, loving big sister. George was an aggressive, I'm better than you, I don't want anything to do with you, big sister. And so then getting that energy back from Daisy was what she needed to like step into her own.
100%. Like their family dynamic, it was my fave.
Yeah. And it was so obvious that they needed that based on how shitty the dynamics felt in the movie. Like not even the writing, like the dynamic of the group was wrong.
It wasn't like, and it threw off all of the characters.
Yeah.
Like no one was very consistent except Mason. But even though we went back in time on Mason.
Yeah, we went back in time, but at least it was still Mason.
Right.
Everyone else wasn't even them.
Yeah, they didn't even feel like themselves. So that's what had the show going for me.
Yeah. Well, that was a short episode.
Well, it was probably time for one.
I know we've been running long.
We have been, but sorry about it.
I mean, hopefully it's still interesting to you guys.
So I think it will be. It's a lot of discussion.
Yeah, but no, I mean, hopefully the long ones, people are like not falling asleep halfway through.
No, because we have good discussion. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and this obviously it's short, it's sweet, it's fast. We didn't have a tiebreaker or a third voice opinion, because we on Friday night we're like, hey, do you want to just do everything this weekend and get it over with?
Because neither of us have any time this coming week.
None of the time. I have a meeting on Monday, a basketball game on Tuesday. I have to see my sister on Wednesday because I haven't seen her in 150 years. And I have the final senior, just getting there in 8th grade, but like their final game, their basketball game on Thursday. And then I work on Friday, and then I'm going out of town for the weekend. So like,
I work tonight, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So like we have a little bit of a scheduling issue. So we're here. So we didn't have to be late for you guys.
But that also means that we won't have had any actual conversations for like 2 weeks. So when we film the next episodes, you guys are gonna, I'm so sorry for whatever happens for the check-in part of the episode, because we won't have spoken.
Maybe we'll get on early and talk a bit more.
Maybe, yeah. We talk every day, but like,
right, but it's not the same.
We don't like trauma dump every day. Just kidding. That's what Snapchat's for.
Exactly.
Well, and with that,
let us know your double helix, because I'm always so interested in what your favorite part of the show
like
is.
what is the thing that impacted you the most? Like the double helix, I also don't think it necessarily has to be a positive impact. It's just like what is the thing that made the show what it was for you? If you hated the show, your double helix is probably not going to be positive. Except for that, like in Hemlock Grove, I hated it, but Joel De La Fuente made it bearable.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Whatever double helix means to you, it's a very open.
What was my double helix for Kolchak? I don't remember.
Either of our double helix was for Kolchak.
Ooh. I know I posted it on Instagram, so that's at least it's out there in the ether somewhere, but I don't remember. Kolchak was more recent than Hemlock Grove, and yet I don't feel like Kolchak happened.
I also feel that way, and I didn't really work on Hemlock Grove. I just did Kolchak, and I still feel like it didn't happen. Like it was just such a like low-key mellow show that
it didn't exist in my head.
Yeah.
Oh, that was about Psycho. I was like, why did I post about shower curtains?
Oh, it was Tony Vincenzo.
No.
That
was.
Oh, that's mine. What's mine?
Yours was.
Oh, that it started the genre for X-Files.
Oh, I said the family dynamic of The Office.
That's right. Yeah. That's
right. The group there, because I liked them better than most of the mysteries.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
And I liked that the show was there to create another show that was good.
Because
Kolchak wasn't terrible, but
no, Kolchak was really good. But it was also one of those things that like TV today is so different.
Right.
And like, that's not to say that old TV doesn't hold up. Like obviously.
Right. You know, that's your favorite
genre.
Era.
That's my favorite era of TV, but it's hard to put it at the same level of microscope that we do with stuff we watch now.
Right.
We have a snoring dog. So we're gonna go.
We're gonna get ready for our live. It's happening in 15 minutes.
If you're watching this on YouTube, it's not happening on 15 minutes.
It's not. It's happening in 15 minutes for us. It happened 2 weeks ago for you.
Yeah. And we will talk to you guys next week about I don't know what. Something. We're gonna have a new show. Don't worry. Between when you watch this episode, you'll be like, they don't know what they're talking about. But between today and when this episode comes out, we will have discussed it with you.
Well, I guess it's been announced 2 weeks ago then. So our next Sunday is going to be our first Sci-Fi Sunday.
Woo!
And that will be a sci-fi show.
Yes. Oh, right. Because we've announced this. Yes.
Right. This is 2 weeks after we've announced it.
This is 2 weeks after we've announced it. So Sci-Fi Sundays starts on Sunday. And did we decide on the name for the other one?
We didn't decide between Wicked Wednesday and Thriller Thursday.
Because that also depends on when I get my shit together to edit.
Right.
The Wicked, Thriller, Wednesday, Thursday. No, it will come up with a more consistent schedule. But we will be doing two new shows. And we'll double the nonsense.
I'll be your official horror guru.
And I will be your captain on this spaceship. That's weird. I don't like that. I'm going to never say that again.
It is weird. I love it.
You can follow us on all of the social medias at Death and Aliens. And you can follow me at EMKAY_superstar.
And you can follow me at CECloud13.
Bye.